Before the seventh and final seal is opened, not only does the church become conspicuous by its absence, but Jesus pauses for another very important purpose. Revelation describes it like this. Then I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds so they did not blow on the earth or the sea or even on any tree. And I saw another angel coming up from the east, carrying the seal of the living God. And he shouted to those 4 angels who had been given power to harm land and sea, "Wait, don't harm the land or the sea or the trees until we have placed the seal of God on the foreheads of his servants." So there's a moment of tremendous calm on the earth, calm before the storm you might say, while the servants of God are sealed. Now who are these servants? Isn't the church pretty much gone by now? Well, it seems so, and when it left, the church age, or the age of the Gentiles, actually came to an end. Basically, the story is now reverting back to those with whom it began, Israel. The Bible says, "And I heard how many were marked with the seal of God. 144,000 were sealed from all the tribes of Israel. From Judah, 12,000. From Reuben, 12,000. From Gad, 12,000. From Asher, 12,000. From Naphtali, 12,000. From Manasseh, 12,000. From Simeon, 12,000. From Levi, 12,000. From Issachar, 12,000. From Zebulun, 12,000. From Joseph, 12,000. From Benjamin, 12,000. So the Gentile church is gone, or at least insignificant in some way, but 144,000 Jewish believers are sealed and left on the earth. We need to turn to Romans 11 to be reminded that God had always intended to turn his attention back to Israel once the full number of Gentile converts had been saved. This is a shortened version of that chapter containing the key passages. I ask then, has God rejected his own people, the nation of Israel? Of course not. No, God has not rejected his own people whom he chose from the very beginning. Do you realize what the scriptures say about this? Elijah the prophet complained to God about the people of Israel and said, "Lord, they have killed your prophets and torn down your altars. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." And do you remember God's reply? He said, "No, I have 7,000 others who have never bowed down to Baal." It is the same today, for a few of the people of Israel have remained faithful because of God's grace, his undeserved kindness in choosing them. So this is the situation. Most of the people of Israel have not found the favor of God they are looking for so earnestly. A few have, the ones God has chosen, but the hearts of the rest were hardened. As the scriptures say, God has put them into a deep sleep. To this day he has shut their eyes so they do not see, and closed their ears so they do not hear. Did God's people stumble and fall beyond recovery? Of course not. They were disobedient, so God made salvation available to the Gentiles, but he wanted his own people to become jealous and claim it for themselves. Now if the Gentiles were enriched because the people of Israel turned down God's offer of salvation, think how much greater a blessing the world will share when they finally accept it. I want you to understand this mystery, dear brothers and sisters, so that you will not feel proud about yourselves. Some of the people of Israel have hard hearts, but this will last only until the full number of Gentiles comes to Christ, and so all Israel will be saved. As the scriptures say, the one who rescues will come from Jerusalem, and he will turn Israel away from ungodliness. And this is my covenant with them, that I will take away their sins. Many of the people of Israel are now enemies of the good news, and this benefits you Gentiles. Yet they are still the people he loves because he chose their ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For God's gifts and his call can never be withdrawn. Once you Gentiles were rebels against God, but when the people of Israel rebelled against him, God was merciful to you instead. Now they are the rebels, and God's mercy has come to you, so that they too will share in God's mercy. Basically, Paul is saying that most of Israel have had their eyes closed and their hearts hardened to the truth about Jesus Christ, and this is punishment for their rejection of him 2,000 years ago. During that time, salvation has been offered to the Gentiles instead, and from that time until now, we have been living in the age of the Gentiles, or the church age. Paul says that this age will only last until the full number of Gentile converts comes to Christ, and when that age is over, God will revert his attention back to Israel again. You see, even though it seems like all Israel has gone astray, rejecting Jesus and the Father who sent him, there is actually a small remnant of believers left, just like in Elijah's day. Remember how Elijah thought Israel was completely devoid of faith and complained that his countrymen had killed God's prophets, but God knew of a 7,000 strong remnant who belonged to him. In the last days, and even now as we approach them, while it appears as though Israel is completely devoid of true faith, once again God will actually know of a small remnant, and it is indeed small, just 144,000 believers who belong to him. They may be referred to as Messianic Jews, Jewish believers. There are 12,000 from each of the Jewish tribes, and in that sense, all Israel will be saved. That phrase doesn't literally mean that every single Jewish person on earth will be saved. It simply means that all Israel is composed of 12 tribes, and each of those tribes will be represented in this final number. If one of the 12 tribes were lost or cut off, it could not be said that all Israel was saved. But the fact is that God knows the lineage of every Jewish person in the world, and an equal number from each tribe will be sealed at this time. They will remain on earth throughout the day of God's wrath. In this moment you may notice strong similarities with the Passover in Exodus. In those days the Israelites were living in captivity in Egypt, and God was sending plagues upon their tormentors. As an ultimate act of judgment, God warned his people that he was going to pass through Egypt and strike down all the firstborn babies in the land. In order to identify themselves as his, the Israelites had to sacrifice a lamb and then smear the blood on their doorframe. God said, "The blood on your doorposts will serve as a sign marking the houses where you are staying. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. This plague of death will not touch you when I strike the land of Egypt." So the Israelites would live through the experience, but they would not be harmed by any of it. It's a similar situation during the day of wrath. God is preparing to pour out his wrath on the whole earth, but these 144,000 Israelites who have been sealed with the blood of the Lamb, even though they're in the midst of the judgment, won't be harmed by any of it. God will pass over them again. Their job during the day of wrath is to take over from the church as God's witnesses on the earth. They will preach the gospel to the four corners of the world. And now let's read about the opening of the seventh and final seal.